All right. So as we kick it off, speaking about how you build the agentic roadmap to accelerate product adoption, there's a couple of quick questions I'd like to share as an icebreaker. Which AI tool are you guys using most? Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, anything else? Um,
Seems like a lot of people are saying Claude here, so that's good.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, they've
Every
done
few months, massive changes.
they've done a good job of marketing themselves there.
Absolutely. I think it's also the experience they deliver as product people. There's a lot to learn from there. And then second question is, where are you in the AI first journey? Just to understand, like, are you guys still exploring? Are you working on that roadmap, prototyping, live in production?
A long time using them. I'm now having frustrating with Gemini. Oh, prototyping. So Fatu said prototype. Nuno says prototyping. Vincent said prototyping primitive agents. A lot of folks are prototyping, and that makes sense as well.
Awesome. And then third question, as we go, like if your product had an AI agent, what's the first thing it should do for your users?
Oh man, live in prod. live, live in, yeah, no, of course. Robert said email and calendar cooperating. That's beautiful.
Awesome.
Ease of onboarding journey, Himanshu said. MJ said validate their content and messaging. It's good.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Work in progress for um, working prototype for agents. There's Ben's added some few agent first thing should do build trust. Wow, that's a good one.
Mm,
Oh, I've
yeah.
chatted a few times about that. Support, just starting new to this, Ramesh said. This is good.
That's awesome. All right. All right. So a little bit about us. I'm Alon, a co-founder of Foldspace AI. I spent my career building personalized platform like Gainsight PX, Marketo, RTP. Also co-authored Mastering Product-Led Growth. I spoke about ClickTax, agent-led growth now in the new AI era. We're going to uncover that. And then we all seeing the biggest shift ever in the industry and how it impacts our products. And today we're going to start discussing how can we think about it from product perspective and execution. And with me, Ramli, from the Light Past, again, we go long back, and then best-selling author of Product-Led Onboarding, which is amazing book I
Thank you.
recommend. And he helped companies grow their kind of revenue through PLG. Love the partnership and thanks for joining, Ramli.
Thank you.
So today, what we're going to cover first, the shift, why agentic onboarding is replacing the traditional flows. I'll show why the tolerance for learning curves has hit a zero, and the new expectation. What does that look like? I'll cover what is the click tax and that kind of term I've coined recently, and how that change our kind of perspective on experience for customers. And then the roadmap. How do you actually sequence this AI first strategy? Not just as theories, actual steps, how you can design these journeys and build it into your roadmap. So, what really happened if we think about the PLG playbook? I spent decades in evangelizing PLG back in 2016, 2017. The promise was seductive. Like we remove the salesperson as a gatekeeper, open the gates, and let product sell itself. For simple tools, it worked, but for complex B2B software, we had to do a reality check, right? Like we solved the access problem. Anyone can sign up for the product, but we completely failed on the outcome problem. And that's like hurting us today as well. As soon as you're growing, you're adding more features, right? And because customers need that power, especially in B2B, operational features, and then you end up with like a lot of cognitive load. So We stopped hand-holding users with sales reps, but we didn't really remove the complexity. We just jumped or dumped it into the users, and we gave them those tooltips instead of actual solution, right? Like the checklist, the tooltips, pushing them to educate. And then I bet like most of you would agree that if you ask your install base or you survey them, how many actually know the depth of your product based on Gainsight studies before I've done that. Less than 10% actually feel and know your full breadth of features of your product. So I think we kind of solved the access problem, but we didn't really solve the outcome problem. We asked them to self-serve, which really just became a polite way of saying struggle alone, self-educate, and we started bombarding them with in-app. So today, in the era of AI, I think that can change dramatically. And if you want to empower your users to have the full breadth of your features, you want to actually invest in agent AI first, AI native experiences, which we're going to cover today, which I think is going to unlock PLG for many companies. So if we look at the traditional SaaS value path, right? How to, as a persona, as I go to kind of towards my outcome, sometimes few months it takes that to reach that. And I think if you look at the flow, this is exactly where the user hits a wall. The entire middle section here is endless clicks path. They need to learn your setup. They need to learn where each feature is. They need to go and configure that. So the click path is what I call the click tax on your users, and as they hunt for the right settings, filters, hoping they're going to apply the best practices as well in your product. So there's a long journey that today the SaaS is built, and that's has to change as we think about AI native. So the click tax is one of the goals in the roadmap I would put to say, hey, let's eliminate that and see how we can do it. And then also identify where the cognitive load is and then eliminate that as well. So we basically want to move from this experience where even when we try to apply tooltips and things like that, it's just roughly like 5% will go to the second step in the walkthrough. And then, usually the retention is pretty low. So what we want to move is to this type of experience, the agentic path, from a click tax and cognitive load to this agentic path. And we can do it with AI, just thinking a little bit outside the box. And you still have the user intent. You have still the persona, which we're going to cover. And then they can suddenly prompt and you can lead them to the outcome, the desired outcome. And we're going to break this down. How can it be done? In a sense, it's less clicking, less learning, and more doing. Again, we don't want to dump education and pushing users to do stuff in an era when they just open Claude Code and they prompt and things happen. That's not the education path, right? It's actually putting the hurdle of cognitive load on the agent itself. So that's what we're going to try to do and build that into your roadmap. So if I look at how do we unpack that, going AI first, and covering a couple of principles, I think it's like what we want to say is the AI first growth is an evolution. It's a product strategy and just building this agentic layer into your product to tie user intent into these outcomes, right? You want to basically tie that together so users don't have to learn. They can just jump to the outcome, and the AI will take care of the cognitive load, setup, and so forth. So that big shift from users learning the product for product learning the user. So we're going to see a couple of tactics. I'm going to cover, those AI first companies as well. And some of them actually can be applied in the B2B SaaS. So I think that the PLG, if you look at AI first, it's a superset of PLG. It's a natural evolution. And I think the same principle apply, but with AI, it makes it much, much more feasible for your end users. So we're going to cover those 5 principles. And it's not really theoretical. And we have seen them work across different customers, from startup to public companies. So nothing here is just like fluff that you can't actually achieve with your own product, as you start focusing on AI first or AI native strategies. So if we start with the principle number one, capture intent and automate execution. If we're focusing on the first mile of product, the onboarding, this is like the foundational shift. So to fix the PLG reality check, we have to decouple what from the how. Right? The user should own the goal. Your product should own the step. That's the way you design it and build a requirement. And then stop forcing users to memorize your complex navigation. If they want to run specific report, they should not go through a heavy click row submenu, click through elements like that. And then to apply the best practices with filters. That's kind of the click tag. So you want to make sure that you capture the intent and help them get to that first outcome based on who they are as a persona. And so focus on, we're going to see a couple of onboarding flows and how those tools are capturing that user intent and then automate the execution of and through actually using generative AI. So we're going to look at quickly on Claude, Notion, and then I want you guys to think about your own product and what happens when you first sign up. In this case, the word is actually context before content. You want to collect that context. It's so important. Even in the past, I remember in previous companies, companies and users sign up for a reason. They have a persona outcome that tends to be forgotten, and that is a very important element, especially now with AI. Context is king. Everything is about context. So you want to make sure that you capture that so you can truly automate the execution. So capturing the intent, capturing the context, and doing that. So if we look at, for example, Claude, and then that's kind of the path that they normally do. They're starting to understand who you are. Is it for teams? So those quizzes are a very effective way to start collecting context so you can actually automate the first mile of product. You can actually create those setups. You can create a lot of things. So sometimes miss, sometimes too much, like asking about the company size, and as opposed to say, hey, let me learn about you so I can help you get to outcome in maybe less than 60 seconds. So if in this case, it might collect the team or move it to you personally, collecting that to create a personalized experience, and then collecting the role for you. And after that, by the way, normally it will ask you for specific objectives. So maybe you're trying to build a PLD template. So the next step, which is not here, is actually it will inject a big prompt that will start working on your PLD, right? So it collected context, your intent, and then start to launch you into a path of start building this, the generative path. Notion is actually doing less of that. It's actually getting kind of just the team that trying to expand as quickly because I guess, again, most people just know what they do and they expect that behavior. In this case, they still are trying to give you a free session just as human resources, but eventually they launch you into the product and very quickly you can start generating with their agent through chat. So allowing you to see what's possible and then having the conversational UI in that. So if we think about that, the Gamma is actually took that to the next level, and I'm going to walk you through how that looks like. So again, they are using quick set of clicks to collect that context on the user. So what is the goal? What is the objective to work with that? And then role is key because I bet all of you guys have ICPs, collecting that as part of the context. Again, organization size, because sometimes it is infecting the way they're going to use your product, right? Do they need operational features or not? And then also finally going into that last moment to say, all right, let's start generating, right? So they didn't try to educate me. They tried to collect some context. So now when they go to the next principle, it allows me to go and generate, which is exactly the next principle, building the generative experience. So we've captured the intent, and now it's how do we actually deliver the outcome, right? So that's like where we want to avoid those blank pages. You want to make sure that as they come in, they have something to start generating. In every product, there's actually a generation of something that ties to the user and ties to the objective, assuming you caught that objective. Um, and I'm going to ask a kind of question here, like from your products, what would be the first thing you would generate in if someone signs up to your product today? What would be their dream kind of generative part?
Just waiting for some answers.
So again, someone signs up to your product. Is there something for you to generate so they can start working on the outcome that your product is supposed to deliver?
Awesome. I got some answers. Vincent said customized pricing based on features package. Wow, that's fascinating. Almost like an SDR at that point. Deshaun said sample project. That's a good one. Usually you don't want to start off with a blank project there. Yes.
So again, like this is even in the biggest B2B, eventually you want them to launch them towards that, but see how critical it is to capture that outcome, the
Mm.
objective, and to go and build that generative path. We've
Yeah.
also seen in studies that if a user start building something and doing stuff in your product, most likely they're going to stick around. You have more chances to actually convert them. And so those are the first experiences is really important. And generative sounds like, yeah, how can I just do this? So many steps. It's not realistic to generate. And really, the answer is you're not supposed to generate 100% of what they signed up for. You're supposed to actually, if you even look at the best generative tools, Lovable, Gamma, it's gonna generate probably like 60, 70, 80% of what you need. And there's a reason for that. Like one is obviously it's very hard to nail the full generation. Second is actually building user trust. Users wants to kind of see what's going on, fine tune it. So allowing them to experience the tool with at least initializing the generative part, allowing them to see the basics. So you just skip the basic setup and they can start working on something. So it doesn't have to be a 100% finished product. You want to actually reach that maybe 80% instantly or even 20%. So launch them into a path that is most closer or closest to their objective. So the user's role is shifting from builder to editor, right? So that's like and usually the last 20% are the one they invest the time to learn your tool. So I bet you create a lot of things with Claude and you saw like the first initialization, amazing. And then the last 20%, now I'm in, now I want to invest and learn more because you launched me into a path and I see kind of the potential end result. So now I'm investing the energy. So again, generative path is really important as they launch in. And generative means less clicking, less learning, more doing, right? That's the point of that. So if we look at the gamma, if I chose one of the subject, it will go and start generating my slides. And remember that like that generative path part is actually what's going to differentiate how they value your tool. So number one, if you don't collect context, it's very hard to generate. If you don't generate, and I see another tool that generates, most likely I will continue to work with that, right? But generating has work into that. So we're going to touch in a few slides, how do you actually work and think about the generative path, the agentic loop, the data behind generating. It's not just a feature, you write a requirement and then everything's happening. It's part of the thinking about going AI native and how it can be done. But Again, the point is you launch them into a thing, you give them a way to edit, whether it's a dashboard, whether it's a new pricing model, whatever, or scorecard. The context collection and the generative part is going to allow you to really launch them into a path that they can see what your product can deliver. And they can also experience that your product is actually doing the heavy lifting. Your product is doing carrying the cognitive load where they are focusing on the outcomes. That's the biggest shift. And I think it's existential for SaaS to actually understand that. And then, if you look at those key companies, all of them are doing that generative path. And again, I want to kind of see a couple of examples. And I've asked that before, like if you can think about that, that's one of the key elements for your roadmap to think what the user can generate in your product. And if the answer is nothing, that's the big opportunity. You have to think about that because going into AI first, AI native, generative part, making your product smart and learn the user and support them is going to be key. If you're going to have users learn your UI, you might be disrupted by that competitor that just does that very well and just like makes the customer feel kind of output. They can achieve outcome and their ROI from the solution is going to be higher from other solutions. So going to principle number 3, basically we want to look at like embedding knowledge into your agent. So in many cases, people just launched a bolt-on kind of agents into the UI and said like, hey, now it can do something. But today, if you think about that, you want to create a sense of memory. You want to create a sense of the agent understands the product because users are not just going to be satisfied by this generate AI button. They want a conversational UI. They want to actually ask questions. They want to ask the agent to do things, and to do it well, you need to build knowledge into these agents so they can do more than just one trick, right? You want to actually be able to allow the user to feel they have white glove service. They have a kind of a co-pilot or an agent that helps them answer the question. It helps them configure the best practice, and it helps them achieve their goal. So you just can't just plug an LLM into your product. You have to also train on the knowledge. You have new features coming in. It has to be knowledgeable. That's going to be a huge benefit for you if you embed that knowledge. And one of the things that if you look, that's from my book. I think SaaS today in the past was always suffering from retention. Retention issues came because most users did not use your full breadth of the features. They couldn't learn it and have all the best practices. So that kind of gap, that value gap is something that you should be bridging. And it's possible to bridge it with an agent if it has the knowledge of all the set of features that it can do and generate for your customers. If it can configure, guide them, show them, that can help you move customers from the active users to truly seeing value. And if you cover that value gap, most likely you're going to see higher retention without spending like massive amount of resources around that. There's so many customer success and product and support that trying to move users from basic users to advanced. A user that is becoming a champion, right, is like most likely to renew and even expand. If you don't do that, most likely you're going to see that slope, that kind of drop off. So what you want to do is embed those best practices into the agent knowledge. So product knowledge and best practices. When the agent is orchestrating the feature, you want to leverage those best practices so the agent is doing that the best way. In many cases, they might, in VidMob, for example, it's an analytics solution for creatives and media buyers. They've ingrained best practices to the way the agent is helping them analyze the reports and derive insights. So it's not just looking at the screen and trying to give you the insights. It actually works against the company industry goals and then helps them generate that. So knowledge is definitely something important, and obviously user context. As we said, what is the user role? It might be creative manager, it might be media buyer, completely different types of user, right? So you want to make sure that the agent is aware of where the user is, what are their objectives, and so forth. So is how you actually think about like the agent is going to be supporting all these personas, and it needs to know that context, and it needs to know the recent and the latest about your product. So I want to kind of touch a little bit on something critical on your roadmap. If you're thinking about AI native, AI first, what does that mean? And what actually is the differentiating winning companies versus like the rest of us? And the reason is like if you look at AI native and AI first, there's a couple of elements you want to build into your roadmap, into your architecture. And the data flywheel concept is something that you have to, I believe, internalize. So if I look at what we are trying to achieve, I want someone to go into Lovable and get the best website based on their intent, right? And Lovable will compete with Vercel on the best first outcome. And now it will compete with Claude. And what they're trying to do, or the racing, is how can they generate the best fit to what you actually prompted, right? That's how we now measure them. And so you think about your product and what you're generating. How can you become the best product that generates in the first 60 seconds, in the first 5 minutes, the best outcome? Because that's going to be the way they're going to measure you. So you need to create that data flywheel. You need to create a learning system that actually always measures the output of your product. So if I kind of cover the layers, you want to think about the agentic interface, the interactive chat, voice, navigation, things like that. This is kind of the UI interface, the user context, the user memory, the knowledge. The other part is the agentic loops. This is the agent you normally built in-house that always are trying to learn from your data, pick up the signals, and whether you're creating a campaign, how can they learn and optimize the next campaign they're going to generate? And it's all working against your deterministic backend, right? You have workflows that doesn't change. If you're trying to have AI do the deterministic workflow, you're going to risk hallucination and critical elements. So if you think about that, what type of feature and experiences are going to the agentic interface? How do you think about agentic loop? And the agentic loop, again, it's the area that you're always working on generating something, optimizing that. Usually it's on your first party data. If you're a CRM, I would build an agentic loop around the conversations. How do I understand the Zoom meeting transcript better and better? How can I better build you a pipeline view? How can I build a better Q3 reports and so forth? So that generative path requires that agentic loop. You need the conversational intelligence, the signals of what the user actually said, what was the outcome is an important component. The trust layer, can I now, as I start creating a lot of agentic experiences, how can I now, when I do changes to my prompt, changing in prompt is actually changing your product now. It's not just if you're launching an agent and you change the instruction, you're changing almost the code, right? So how you actually thinking about the evals? How are you actually going to measure the improvement and where it might hallucinate, any ambiguity in your prompt? So the trust layer is something to think about, and always a closed loop iteration. So again, when you think about the AI native roadmap, thinking about the data flywheel and how it can generate better and better outcome is going to be part that you're going to start probably working on that this year and next year. If I move to principle number 4, and feel free to kind of shoot questions in the chat. We'll have time in the end, but again, if you see something, feel free to just shoot that question. The conversational signals are key as well. We are used to looking at clicks, page views, bounce rate. We're trying to decipher from heat maps what was the user intent. I think that in the AI first era, the guesswork disappears. You have the user literally typing exactly what they want, right? So every single interaction becomes the ultimate demand signals. You're going to see what they are trying to achieve. When a user interact with your chat interface, they don't know even if you have the feature, they're going to ask for it. So don't overlook that conversational signals. It's a very powerful insights mechanism that say, here's what users actually are trying to achieve, here's their sentiment, here's the outcome. So, so much to gain from understanding and looking at conversations at scale. So that's a really powerful way to do it. And users, you're going to see that they treat the agent like a magic wand, right? They're going to start asking things that might feed into your roadmap. And we're seeing that like people actually are asking features. Sometimes it's there. You just need to kind of build a agentic experience. Sometimes it's not a feature that even exists. So much better than surveys and meeting with 5 to 10 customers, you can actually see your entire user base and what they actually are trying to achieve. So very powerful part and part of your strategy to look at this. And then those signals is basically feeding your data flywheel, right? So the intent signals, collecting that, understanding how to optimize the generative path, how can you optimize the advanced feature utilization, and so something to think about and how to kind of build a roadmap that you're going to build a product that actually learns over time. It's a new concept. So stop thinking about feature function. Start thinking about how can my product start to learn over time, so it can actually become a very competitive and compelling a solution into the AI era. And then principle number 5 is the agentic user experience. The biggest mistakes we're seeing right now is you're bolting AI interface into everything. It's just like a generate button or just a support chat. You want to have something more consistent and cohesive around this. You want to have more dynamic experiences. So if you think about that again, that agent needs to know more, do more, and not every experience is chat. There's always a thought about, hey, everything's going to be chat, everything's going to go to Claude, and I don't think that's correct. I think that eventually you're going to see different elements of visualization. If you think about that, there's a couple of screens in your product that can act as lovable, right? If you have a campaign creation, if you have calendar management, if you have any type of scorecard creation, that you can turn that into a lovable experience. The users see the outcome, the visualization, if it's a dashboard or campaign, and they can prompt to continue to work on that. That's the thinking, because in B2B, as opposed to lovable, which is like one place, kind of one feature, you have probably like 200 features. You're going to pick those 5 and make them lovable. So if I'm in that screen, I can see something like that, that I can chat, see the outcome. I can just converse, see the outcome, and I'm always focusing on that outcome, right? So that's an embedded way to see the agent as opposed to the floating way. You can always use, in other scenarios, you may use voice. If I'm a salesperson, CRM, I hate going to the CRM, but if you give me a voice experience through mobile, I'm like, I love the CRM suddenly, right? Can actually, hey, prepare me for that meeting, or I just had that meeting. Can you save that meeting notes and so forth? That experience can become really impressive. So other examples like this, if you have a lot of menus, the floating widget also works well. So not everything is chat. Visualization is critical. Always they want to see the outcome. You want to build that trust, and that's something to think about as you go along. Any questions so far? Let me see if there's anything jumping out.
I haven't seen any. Yeah. Oh, God. Okay. No questions.
Awesome. So if we think about it again, like one of the key elements is to think about your product as a set of of lovable experiences. And that's a sequence I would build into any product. Go to the core elements of outcomes you want to users to use the most and make them a lovable experience. Eliminate navigation as much as possible. You don't want users to memorize the features. Eliminate complex settings. Again, if you in the way we're going to map those agentic paths as well is like where the user has to now take a decision. I just signed up. Now need to take a decision, and I just don't know what is the best practices, right? So you want to eliminate those areas in when you identify your product, and then start focusing on the generative outcomes. And then every interaction should probably produce something meaningful. And so you kind of break it to micro experiences and you start launching that into your roadmap. I think that's one of the more practical approaches to that element. So one of the elements I want to make sure that you capture as well is the human in the loop, building the trust. Um, um, Always showing. I think that if you're just going to go into Cloud interface and your product is going to be with MCP, it's great, but it's very hard to show the outcome in many cases. So bringing into your product and showing the outcome, then they even see things that they didn't even think about, right? When we visualize a dashboard, someone see, hey, I didn't see that KPI or I forgot about the other element. So building that human in the loop as they converse is going to be critical to build trust. Let me see what it's doing. It should inform me, allow me to do inline editing. Sometimes clicking is still much easier than chatting. If I want to change a filter, I can do it with one click as opposed to chat about this. So things to think about to create those reversible experiences and then progressive autonomy, elements of a human in the loop, building trust, because again, AI can also hallucinate, but if I see it as a user, it's fine. I can just course correct. If I don't see it and it said like, I just did it, I just, booked your flight, that's going to be problematic. I want to see it before any update and create elements. You want to see visualization. You want to prompt the user. So thinking about that element is going to be important. So let's think about like that hands-on experience, mapping kind of your click tags, and turning that into agentic path. One of the elements we can try doing is also taking a product and then seeing how can we map that click tags and then mapping that journey. So usually what I recommend doing again is even trying to use a fig jam experience. So if it's okay, I can actually look at a specific path. I can show you two things. One is the how can I generate that, or how can I design those click paths, and then mapping from persona to the outcome, and then identifying the friction points. Friction points today is where do you ask the user now to take a decision? Turning right or turning left, they don't know, they're not sure. So that's like, oh, when they start generating stuff, there's a lot to do. How can they do it? Those are friction points in those journeys. And once you map that, then you start building those requirements for the agentic path. So I think we have a product we can use, right, Ramli?
Yes, I have unfortunately don't see the PM manual here, but it's 90.io if you wanted to check it out. Unless there's somebody,
Sure.
yeah, let's just go with that so that
All right.
it's easy to understand.
Uh,
Yeah.
do you see the sign up here?
90 dot you should be able to sign up. I saw it.
I see. If you still see my screen, I guess it's showing the sign up.
Let me
Or
see.
it's still like, let me just share the,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, there you are signing up.
Okay.
It's asking you
Okay.
to fill out some stuff.
So
Yeah.
context, great. Collecting context before that, running effective meetings. Let's see if it works. All right. So in this case, right now, this is kind of the empty state. If you capture, I'm trying to create effective meetings. It's something that you can start generating stuff, right? So usually what I do is kind of take a snapshot of the screen and say, all right, for me to, and then I jump to Figma. I saw the context. I start creating the flow, the click tags to my experience, and go back to this. I can say start a meeting. Now I see another flow. This was a 10 minutes meeting prep. Again, collecting the screenshot. Now I have a flow to create my first meeting. And then attendees, now I need to kind of understand how do I configure that, right? So in this case, if I want to control that, I want to do the sharing. I can see rock view. Add the rock is another thing, probably important step in the tool, adding a rock. So if I imagine the path to create that effective meeting, I want to just map the flow today and think, how can I now eliminate the click tags, right? What if I can say, I can start from collecting the context, what type of meeting would you like to generate, right? That can be a good option as a starter as I move to the next one. And then here I see the cognitive load. So, right, so can I actually skip that navigation? Can I generate for it? And what type of elements, what composes effective meeting? So, and then now I need to understand what does it mean to have a rock and add a rock. So eventually I will go into these steps. And when I agentify that, my agentic path will be less those 5 or 10 clicks. I'm going to have a prompt and I'm going to have a generated effective meeting based on what I gave you as an input. So you can go on and on. It says like, identify here. I couldn't understand what should I supposed to do here. Here, also as a user, now I'm not sure uh, where I should go, right? So I just clicked on whatever is there, which is okay, but I can now map the entire thing, and you're going to see that you're going to have a lot of different elements that are going to be empty. So again, this is a fantastic way to think about how can you generate the outcome, show me, and I bet they have templates and so forth, show me the outcome. And now if I do agentic path, it's going to be way less than all these. Now I see another kind of elements. Now I need to think about the title, the content. There's a lot of configuration, right? So, and then here there's a nice actually help me draft one. So, again, I would say that if you map the journey towards the create, I think you want to have those experiences generated so you can actually end in this type of outcome, but with less clicks and configuration, because about you can converse about the outcome, and you can jump from, if you started from a chat experience, what are you trying to achieve, which meeting I can actually generate and end up in this screen. And that's your click tags and points of cognitive load. How can I help the user? In some cases, if it's just text, allow the user to see and edit. But in some cases, if I need to learn about what are rocks and what's the best practices and what's the most effective meeting, 10 minutes or 20 minutes, those are the things you can ingrain into the agent. So you don't have to start with like ineffective meeting. You can actually start with like the best meeting as a user. That's also a jump. If you think about that, I remember like Optimizely. You go in, you start learning, and there's a huge journey. You can say they built a very quick A/B testing, but it's very simple one because they don't want to overwhelm the user. But if you do the simple stuff, you don't see the ROI. Today with AI, if I want to build an A/B testing, the agent will configure the advanced stuff. I don't need to know about it. I just want to have a very successful A/B testing experiments. So using FigJam, using notes, explaining what is the journey today, in which point can I take away the cognitive load, that's a fantastic way. And I can show you how we in Foldspace are trying to do the same as we start launching our solution. So in this case, for example, if I want to generate the product agent for 90, I would go again and collect some context, right? So if you can see my screen, I want to create the operator agent. I want to call it a 90 AI. And then I can work on generating those experiences. So we've invested in actually that data flywheel and generating the best product agent for solutions. But we are now investing how do I remove cognitive load? So you're just going to focus on the outcome. Things you can build today. Every users that you have coming in, think about what can you generate so you can just launch them into a 60%, 80% of the outcome as opposed to them going in. Let me just try again. And then after that, we're trying to give you those experiences so it's actually easier and easier for you to achieve those outcomes.
This is
Any
awesome.
questions? Yeah, any questions so far?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions here actually. First is from Sajida. If a user's clicking through menus and aren't clicking through menus anymore, do we need to shift our focus from UI walkthroughs to teaching users how to prompt or phrase their intent? I think
That's a great,
yeah,
yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I think I know where you're gonna go with this, but please go
No,
ahead.
go. No, I'll let you share your thoughts.
No, you were the whole presentation about this, right? Like clicking is it takes our cognitive load, and this is the can accelerate people really around this. Yeah.
Yeah, so think about like first the good part is like Claude and everybody's actually is already teaching users how to prompt. Right? If they go to your product, it's much easier for them to state what they want to achieve. It's less about, hey, prompt it this way so it can be achievable. It's like they're going to focus on the outcome. You're going to build the backend prompts for how to achieve that. So again, mind shift, like think about it. As opposed to educate them about all those settings, which again, they're not going to memorize. You're going to release a lot of new features. They're not going to memorize that and continue to do it.
Mm.
They're going to focus on the outcome. Outcome is very easy to prompt. I'm going to Lovable, create me a dashboard, right? So they don't teach me about how to prompt. So it's using React or whatever the framework they choose. They just focus on the outcome. You might want to build leading questions or personalized starters in your agent. So they just can click on that as we saw with Gamma, right? Like you can have those built in. If you sign up for Claude, it will actually shoot a prompt that will start generating the first thing you're trying to generate with Claude. So thinking about that, again, they're less and less needing to be a great prompt engineers. They just focus on what they want and what should be changing, and they're going to ask questions. Your job when you build the agentic interface is to do the very well prompting so the agent really knows how to operate your system. So we're seeing here is the next step with Foldspace is it was generate smart rocks. We identified that in 90, might be an activation thing, and it might be where the user actually has a friction point. So and so I'm trying to make sure that we identify the right experiences,
Mm.
so it helps users focus on the outcome and less about what it means. And then obviously knowledge, building knowledge into your product, help center and so forth is important. And also trying to say, hey, let me generate those starters. So things that you want to make sure that your agent does. So if I launch as that persona, what should be the kind of the key starters I want to experiment with, and maybe even visualize. Show them that kind of meeting, the calendar, the fancy stuff that they can generate for them so they can understand what is the outcome, right? That's like what we recommend doing. So going back to the slides, again, sequencing your agentic roadmap, define the journey, focus on the persona, map those decision points. Do they map those empty points, empty screens? Make sure that you're tackling these first. Prototype the experiences. Map the relevant data points, the knowledge necessary to achieve this, the best practices. As think about that as micro lovable pages you have in your system. And then prepare the AI native stack. You have to think long term. And it's, in every category, there's, AI is everything. But actually, if you think about it, there's like the agentic interface, there's the agent loops, the insights I need, the signals. I need also a learning system. I need to also integrate with a lot of different systems. So building that into your long-term roadmap is going to be critical. Today, if you generate something, you're going to be better than others. In next year, they're going to start comparing, is your generative better than others? And again, I think we're going to see a lot of like discussion. Maybe it's all going to go into Claude and it's going to be no UI anymore. It's all MCP. Usually it's right and wrong. Definitely Claude is going to be, or other is going to be a interface with your product. But think about that. In most of the solution, you want to see the outcome. You want to be part of that configuration or just the outcome itself. And click and point sometimes is very effective. So I think it's going to be a balance. Stuff that it can do automatically, no UI, fantastic, MCP. But again, your solution is delivering something that they need to visualize it and get help. So that's something that you're going to build in your solution. And Lovable is very visual. You have to go to their UI. You're not going to say, "Hey, just create the website and I'm going to stay with the chat," right? They want to bring you in. Your solution is going to be the same. Just a few stats throwing in before we finish. We're seeing great success with companies start doing this. So anywhere if you have free trial, day one activation, retention jumps dramatically. Companies are achieving those first outcomes in less than 60 seconds. If I believe we can generate a meeting in less than 60 seconds if we identify that. Onboarding time cuts dramatically. You don't hurdle the users with all this configuration and settings and calling them and spending time on the phone and guiding them. The agent can do it based on the context, automate that. Support ticket deflection, there's like less and less for them to bump into things because the agent is doing, right? And then less and less support tickets of knowledge gaps that might be occurring. And then activation rate. I think moving users from, without them knowing, if you have identifying your product, a user is a super user from day one. The agent is doing, they say the agent does, and that's what the beauty about this. So wrapping up with three key takeaways. Time to value over time in product, right? You want to identify this first interaction, build it into your roadmap, build those micro experiences. Activation is an outcome, not a checklist. So stop pushing them for education, give them the outcome, allow them to vibe code the outcome, vibe code your features. And then key is to reduce cognitive load at every step. Use FigJam, map those steps, right? Because otherwise you're going to end up with like, oh, your product is powerful, but very complex, and you start losing, or they never knew that you had that feature. So reducing cognitive load is key because as we are going to more agentic era, cognitive load is just disappearing. Nobody wants to know, how to utilize your solution and start learning that. They will want to know the advanced or things that they want to click, but again, this is like key takeaway from this session. So wrapping up, and thanks for staying so long. If there's any questions, feel free to drop it in the chat and we'll take them.
Yeah. Oh, we're at time. Do you have some time to stay around? I know some people might have to pop up.
Yeah.
There's a great question from Lynn about how do you address users with different prompting abilities. So some people are great at prompting and some people are Not great, not that great at prompting.
Uh, So again, if you're speaking about the end user, I believe that the end user is not going to necessarily be a prompt engineer, right? So uh, internal teams, definitely prompt engineering is something to learn and optimize. And there's a lot of tools. Again, if when you're building the prompt for the agent inside, there's a lot of best practices. But for your end users, usually don't need to be masters in prompting. They're going to just ask like I asked Laravel, hey, remove this, create this, I want this. The best way is when you build the agent is always to instruct it to ask clarifying questions for the user. So for example, one of the biggest mistake I'm seeing, I'm going to the product and say, generate campaign, like we saw with 90 as well, generate content. What content, right? So a chat interface saying, help me understand what is the goal of the campaign. Let me see the data that works for you, the other campaigns, and then converse with the user until they are satisfied and the agent actually understood what they're trying to achieve, as opposed to this one hit generate with AI, then there's output, the user is not satisfied, and that's it. The conversation is gone. So conversing, allowing and instructing your agent to always ask clarifying questions will help generate the better outcome for the users.
That's awesome. I know we're over time already. So if you do have any questions, what's the best? Oh, you have your email there or your LinkedIn?
Yeah, feel free to reach out. Like this is my email
Yep.
at the bottom. Also hit me on LinkedIn, Alon on LinkedIn. Thank you for joining. Hopefully this was useful, and we will share the recording after the call.
Thank you so much, Mickey. I really appreciate you. I know some people got a lot of ideas out of this. I'll be sharing the recording like you mentioned. And if people have questions, they know where to find you. You're also very active on LinkedIn. I should drop that in the chat. Um,
Yeah, that'd be
LinkedIn
awesome.
in Alon. There, can't forget this one. There it is. Other than that, we do have another kind of workshop coming up later this month. But Mickey, really appreciate you. Thank you for sharing all your knowledge about this. I'm really excited about the future with this. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for
Thank,
taking the time.
thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Bye for
Bye
now.
bye.